Good afternoon, Anthony Cotton and Jason Finley with Max Anderson.
Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you had a lovely lunch. We are still on the state's case in chief. State, no idea what that was. State, are you prepared to call your next witness?
Yes, Special Agent George Reinerth.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
If you can please be seated, state and spell your name for the record.
It is George Reinerth, Reinerth.
How are you employed?
I'm currently a special agent with the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
How long have you been with the Federal Bureau of Investigation?
Approximately 10.5 years.
What's your current assignment?
I am a special agent based here in Milwaukee.
What is CAST?
CAST stands for the Cellular Analysis Survey Team. It's a group of approximately 100 special agents and task force officers within the FBI that have received extensive and continued training and experience in analyzing cell phone cellular records, as well as other location records.
And how do you become a member of CAST?
For me, it was approximately 3.5 years. It's multiple internal and external courses, teachings from both academia, including the Florida Institute of Technology, as well as instruction from the cell phone providers themselves.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So for example, Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, and then US Cellular here in Wisconsin.
Have you done something called cell site analysis in the past?
I do it on a daily basis.
Can you tell the jury what the cell site analysis is?
Yes, cell site analysis are taking records that are generated from your cell phone as it interacts with the network. All those interactions are recorded by the provider and then able to be analyzed. And they include information such as dates, times, numbers, and locations of where that device is. So when locations throughout the US, Wisconsin, wherever it may be, and then it's visually depicting that on a map at a time or around a period of time.
Have you used in the past historical records to locate fugitives or missing persons?
I have.
And
Just a minute, we're gonna address this noise so it doesn't distract people.
this one is off, so.
I think it's the hearing device out in the gallery is what
This
where I
is
think
off.
it's coming from. There's an amplifier in the gallery. Yeah? Okay, please continue, sorry for that.
No problem.
All right. Have you given trainings in historical cell site analysis before?
I have, and I am an adjunct faculty member in this field within the FBI.
And have you been qualified and testified as an expert in this field before, the field of cell site analysis?
I have.
How many times?
Just over 50 times across approximately 7 states and 22 different state and federal courts.
All right, related to the historical cell site analysis, can you just discuss with the jury or explain to the jury how a cell phone works and communicates with the cellular network?
Yes, your cell phone is basically a modern day two-way radio. So as you, for example, want to call your sister in California, and we're here in Milwaukee, you dial those numbers on your phone connects with a cellular tower, and that cellular tower facilitates that call. That information is all recorded. So it would be the number for your sister, it would be the date, time that occurred, and then the cell tower and the side of the cell tower that actually facilitated that interaction so you could talk to your sister.
And what records are maintained and then subsequently can be provided to you related to that activity?
So just sticking with that specific activity, it would be the date, the time, the number you dialed, the unique identifier for that cell tower. Every cell tower across the providers each has their own unique number, and then the side of that tower that was used.
And are you able to tell who is exactly using the phone based on those records when a voice or a text message is done, voice call or text message?
I cannot.
Okay. Are you able to provide an exact location based on your analysis with just the data that's provided to you?
I cannot.
Why do phone companies keep the records that you've explained that you're analyzing?
For the main purpose of billing as well as managing and optimizing their network.
I want to talk about timing advance and data records. Are there records kept by the phone companies that may show an approximate phone's location without necessarily a voice call or a text message happening?
There are.
What are those records called?
So they can be called timing advance, or there's also data session records or data records from the cell phone companies.
The data records, are you able to, from the records alone, able to see what is actually being done on the device, such as what website is being viewed or social media app loaded? Are you able to tell that from those records?
I cannot, and just to explain a little bit, so when I talked about calling your sister, as your phone would just be sitting on your desk or sitting at home or work, wherever you may be, there's all the apps and everything else that's going on in your phone in the background, just talking to the network, that's captured on the data side of the records. So it's not necessarily user-generated activity, but things that could be going on in the background. But even with that, I still can't say from the records what's actually being done, what apps are visited or anything like that.
So does a user actually have to be doing something on the phone and able to generate a data record?
They do not.
My phone could, like you said, just be sitting on the desk and data records could be generating without even me touching the phone?
Yes.
Okay. With those data records, do you still get time and tower information?
You do. So you're still going to get a date, time, and that unique tower identifier inside of the tower that was used for that.
So in other words, you're able to get that information even if a phone is not being used?
Correct.
Okay. I want to move on to timing advanced records. Can you tell the jury what those records are and the information that it contains?
Yes. So timing advance, the main reason time advance exists is to synchronize and align your phone with the network. As you can imagine, there's a lot of people that have cell phones out there, and everyone's trying to talk to the tower at the same time. Everyone needs to have their individual time slot when they communicate, and that's what timing advance does. It adds one additional piece that the cell phone, for example, when you call your sister, that's not in there, and that provides the distance from the tower your phone is located at that time. So again, not necessarily any user interaction as your phone's just sitting here, but you're getting the date, the time, the tower, the side of the tower, and then the distance that phone is at that time.
How is the distance measurement obtained by the phone companies?
So it's similar to a radar gun. So it's a signal that's sent out from the tower and back. And based off the time that signal takes, a distance is able to be calculated.
Does every cell phone provider call it timing advanced, or are there variances?
There's different names. For example, Verizon calls it RTT, but they're still providing that tower, that time, that sector, and that distance.
So same information regards to distance of the device from the tower,
That is correct.
but again, not able to say exactly where the phone is.
So it will refine the location because, well, just a voice record is going to give me that tower and sector. And with that, I can just identify you're in this area and this general geographic area. However, when we have the distance, it can refine that. For example, let's say we're in an area where towers are spaced really far apart, and I get a distance measurement of a quarter mile from that tower. That drastically refined that area of where that device is, because it's that approximate quarter mile from the tower versus a lot larger area.
And just to clarify, when we're talking about this, these records, the person who has the phone may not even be using it at all.
Correct. The phone just needs to be powered on and communicating with the network.
Okay. What is the purpose of why timing advanced is used in the cellular network?
The main reason is to manage the phone's communication with the tower. So again, that timing and synchronizing that phone with the network.
So is the network trying to make sure everything is operating correctly?
It needs to be operating correctly and at the right time. Because if everybody tried to communicate with that tower at the same time and all these messages and these requests for service hit, for example, you could have a collision, and then people aren't going to have the standard of service that they expect.
And what, I guess you're kind of getting into it there, why are the phone companies keeping this information, or how do they use it?
So the timing advance they're using a lot for managing, evaluating, and troubleshooting the network. So the engineers may use that to actually dive into an area. Let's say, for example, a customer calls and says, I keep dropping calls. The engineers could go and look at that tower and get more details about what's occurring on that tower to troubleshoot, manage, and improve that area for potential service.
How does the distance from the tower measurement help you when you're forming your opinions?
As I mentioned a little bit before, it's really for the purpose of refining my conclusion as to where that device is. So when we're asked to analyze these records, we're providing the visual depictions of that data to identify where it is, and that distance allows me to refine that conclusion as to where that phone is at that specific time.
So would it be fair to say that you could potentially identify a lot smaller geographic area that the phone could be in based on these records?
That is correct.
Let's go back to looking for, say, a missing person. If you were looking for a missing person or needed to locate someone imminently, would these be the types of records you would want to use?
They would.
And why?
Because it goes to giving me that most specific location of where that phone is. And a lot of times, if a phone might be in the area for a period of time, you don't just have one distance, you get multiple distances that start intersecting. And those intersecting distances, again, further refine that conclusion to potentially take it down to, let's say a half block or even smaller, depending on what you have.
Have you used records like these before this case for that purpose?
I have.
Okay. And were these the kind of records that you primarily used for this case?
Yes, both the timing advance as well as the data records.
So you're talking about cell phone records. We were talking about cell phone records here. Were you provided other location information records?
I was giving location data from a Life 360 account.
So summarize, what all information were you provided before you did your analysis?
I was provided records for a Verizon cellular phone, an AT&T cellular phone, and then a Life 360 account.
I have Exhibit 285 on the screen next to you, and I'm going to show you the hard copy of it. You can page through it if you need to. And just let me know when you're done.
I'm done.
Do you know what 285 is?
It's the number on the front of this slide.
Do you know what is Exhibit 285?
Oh, I'm sorry. It is my report that I created for this case.
Okay. I'd move 285 in and ask to publish. I'm going to put it on the TV screen in a digital form.
Any objection?
No.
It's received.
The information that you just discussed that you used for this case, it's on the front screen there, correct? This is just the title page?
It is.
And specifically, you were looking at which phone numbers and from what networks?
So the first is the Verizon cell phone, 414-510-4769. An AT&T cell phone, 262-416-4874. And then the Life 360 account associated with 414-510-4769.
And that was Sade's Life 360, Sade Robinson's Life 360?
That was the name in the return.
Okay. Oh, that was it from the records. It was Sade.
It was from the records.
All right. And you did this report, this final version on November 19th, 24?
Correct, and the right is just an internal case number for this case.
All right. So we've talked about the types of records that you've used. I want to talk about what conclusions that you can draw from these records. Are you able to see if the phone's location information is consistent with being at those areas around the times that you're asked to look at?
Yes, I can.
And can you use the records to get a sense, in a sense, create a timeline to show where a phone went at certain periods of time?
I can.
Or over a period of time, I guess I should say?
Yeah, so over a period of time, can identify if a phone was in a similar area for that time or if there was movement and where that movement was.
And were you able to use this information to determine whether multiple different devices were consistent with being in the same location as one another at certain times?
I was.
Were you able to identify whether the phone records were consistent with the phone being in a single area for an extended period of time?
Yes,
Or moving from one area to the next?
that too.
And while you can't give an exact location of the phone, which you've already testified to, are you able to get information that shows the location consistent with where that phone might be?
Yes, in addition to these phone numbers, I'm given locations as well in dates and times. So I can identify if records are consistent with being in the area of one of those locations that I'm asked to look at.
Again, you can't say who is using the individual devices at these specific times based on the records alone, right?
I cannot.
Okay. I should have probably asked this before, but is it safe to assume that in order for you to even get these records, the individual phone has to be on and functioning at the time?
Yes, the phone needs to be powered on and communicating with the network to generate these records.
Are you able to then determine from these records whether there are times when the phone is not connected to the network?
Yes, based on the data sets that I had here, you can identify when a phone is no longer on the cellular network.
How can that be done using these data?
Both data sets, we've talked about timing advance or the RTT for Verizon. So on the AT&T records, the main way is by looking at the data sessions. Again, as I mentioned, data sessions are always occurring. Your phone is communicating with the network. In those records, if you see the data session stop and there are no data sessions open for an extended period of time, that is consistent with the phone no longer on the network. Similarly then to the Verizon phone, on the RTT or the timing advance where we get the distance measurements, when those records stop and are no longer providing distances, that is then consistent with that phone also no longer being on the network. So analyzing the records, going line by line through the thousands of lines of data that are within there and seeing when there is activity and when there is not.
Could the phone going off the network be caused, for example, by the phone's battery dying?
That could cause it to go off the network and then it would no longer communicate and generate records.
Because the phone turns off?
Because the phone is powered off, there is no power.
But you are not able from these records to tell the reason why a particular phone goes off the network.
I cannot.
Let's say I drove around Milwaukee all over the place and didn't touch my phone throughout doing so. Would there be, and my phone was on, would there be records from the phone company that you could use to identify the approximate movements of my phone?
Objection, speculation.
I think he's laid that foundation already. You can answer it if you're able.
Yes, there would be records for that.
All right, so we've talked about the call detail records, right? And the data and RTT. Is there any other records? Anything else you need to start your analysis?
And the timing advance, which is similar to RTT. It would just be the dates, times, and locations that I'm requested to analyze.
All right, let's go through the PowerPoint here. First of all, when you completed this PowerPoint, did you have somebody peer review your work?
Yes, all of our reports are peer-reviewed by another CAS-certified agent. They take the same raw records, they use a different mapping software, and verify that everything is accurately depicted on the maps that I created.
I'm gonna go to page 2, and for the record, the pages are down here in the lower left-hand corner. So what are we going through? Let's go through this slide by slide.
Yeah, so it's a lot of words. It's the most words that will be on any slide, but it just summarizes a lot that we already talked about. The first is the numbers that I was given and the information and how I was asked to analyze these records. The second just talks about the methodology. So for the phone records, it's taking those cellular records and mapping that up against a tower list. We didn't mention the tower list, but that's a list of where every tower in the entire US is located. So then mapping that and visually depicting that. The last line on paragraph 2 talks about the Life 360 accounts. Those are mainly latitude and longitude coordinates of locations, and they came with varying accuracy readings between approximately 4.7 and 61.1 meters. So that was the information that was overlaid with the cellular records. 2.1 is those cell site locations that I just referenced, so mapping those up against the phone records. And then 3 is just talking about visually depicting that, or 2 and then 3 are talking about visually depicting that on a map and illustrating that.
Next slide, what do we got?
These are just sample cell towers that you'll see out there in the real world. These aren't ones used for this case, but just to illustrate what they may look like. On the right is a pole that, for example, could be out in a rural area, big metal structure with antennas, and you see the antennas mounted on there. Not everything looks like that. Here in downtown Milwaukee, you may see antennas on top of buildings, inside steeples, any crevice that may be out there, or they could, for example, be hidden in a flagpole or any other structure.
Slide 4.
When I talked about not only the tower, but the side of the tower, the side is referred to as a sector. So every tower generally has 3 sectors or sides. Not every sector or tower is, not every tower is oriented this way, but every sector generally covers 120 degrees. So for example, if this tower was used and you use this tower, sector 1, you'd be using a sector that provided coverage north of that tower. So using that direction that the primary signal is being sent out from that tower helps me identify and draw my conclusions as to where that phone is. As I show this here in terms of 3 sectors, not every tower has 3 sectors. There are antennas that may be called omnidirectional, which means they have one sector that provides 360 degrees of coverage.
Okay. Slide 5, this is about the RTT and timing advance that we discussed.
Yes, this is just illustrating what that's going to look like on the map. So in addition to the tower and the side of the tower, the sector, that distance. So that black dotted line that you see right there, that would be the distance for that record. You then see that arc that is drawn to illustrate that record and that measurement of where the phone was at that time.
Okay, so, and then obviously when we're looking at the maps, you're not gonna have the image of a tower like you have here, but this sort of pie piece here will come to a point when we're looking at the maps at the location of the actual cell tower itself, correct?
Correct.
This shaded area that I'm circling with my mouse here is not meant in any way to suggest that the phone is within that shaded area, right?
No, that shaded area is just kind of closing out that, referred to as a wedge, just so you can see it on the map and understand kind of where those sector arms are.
The RTT timing advanced information, the distance from the phone, from the tower is demonstrated by the arc, is what you're saying.
That is correct.
Let's go to slide 6.
This is just an example of the slide illustrations that you will see. All the records are going to have information about that interaction, which is on the top. So for example, on the left, there'll be information regarding the unique cell number. So in this case, it's 509061 and 306753. That one was an omnidirectional tower, which is why you see that 360. And then there's going to be the times of those interactions that are depicted on the map. They will be color-coded. So the AT&T phone is going to be blue, and the Verizon phone will be red. And then on the right, for any Life 360 records, it's going to be denoted by a box with a green time. So that's taking the time from the Excel sheet with the coordinates and then displaying that. What that looks like beneath, starting on the left, that's similar to that RTT example you saw on the prior slide, just what it's going to look like. So as council had just mentioned about how you're not going to see the tower, that's an image you will see. And then on the right, for a data record, for example, you're just going to see that tower and sector because there is no distance inherently in that data record.
Okay. Slide 7.
This is an overview of the Verizon network throughout the kind of greater Milwaukee area that's shown here. And on the right are all the locations that I was provided when I was asked to do the analysis. So it included the Pizza Shuttle, which is the purple P, located at 1827 North Farwell Avenue in Milwaukee.
Where I'm circling?
That is correct.
Okay.
The Twisted Fisherman with the yellow and the T, 1200 West Canal Street, also in Milwaukee. Maxwell Anderson's residence with the red R at 3161 South 39th Street in Milwaukee. Duke's on Water with the blue D at 158 East Juneau Avenue in Milwaukee. And then a location of a leg. I was given exact latitude, longitude coordinates, which are pinpointed down there with the orange box.
All of the locations you just discussed are in Milwaukee County, Wisconsin?
They are.
All right. You can continue.
And then just the red dots are just all the different Verizon antennas throughout this area.
A lot more Verizon antennas in the downtown area than, say, over where I'm circling now, right?
Yes, generally speaking, you're going to have a higher concentration of antennas in the downtown urban environment. And as you get outside from that urban environment into more rural areas, as you kind of see here going down towards St. Francis, or even larger, if you were to drive west towards Waukesha, they're going to be less dense and more spaced out.
Next slide is slide 8.
The exact same location information, but this time for the AT&T network. And those blue dots are the AT&T antennas in this area.
And no additional pin drops, that same locations that we're focused on, right?
Same locations.
All right, let's get into what you mapped out. And again, just to start, at the very top here, we've got Sade's phone is going to be depicted by the red markations on the maps, right?
Yes, by the red arcs or circles based on the RTT measurements.
Maxwell Anderson's phone is blue,
That is correct.
and it's serviced by AT&T, right?
Correct.
And then the green dots up here, you have it labeled for Sade's Life 360, right?
That is correct.
Okay, let's go through this, and why don't you take it from, I guess, top to bottom.
Yeah, so top to bottom, we just went over that very top line, but all the substantive slides are going to look like this. The phones or the Life 360 account will be noted on top, and then the date, so April 1st, 2024, and the time of 4:55 p.m. through 5:15 p.m., that's the summary of what's displayed beneath. And then based off of looking at those records, we're able to identify what's happening during that time. So in this case, just starting with Sade's phone, the Verizon phone, it starts up in the area of the Pizza Shuttle at approximately 4:55 p.m., also with a Life 360 record, and has records consistent with travel down towards the area of the Twisted Fisherman, with records moving over here to the right, beginning around approximately 5:05 p.m.
All right, so the green dots here that are kind of in a line, and then they head west, and then it looks like they head south on 6th Street here. Those are the Life 360 points, and what was the, do you recall the accuracy of those again?
They vary between approximately 4.7 and 61.1 meters.
Would you be able to use the microphone, and I'm gonna, the stand-up one, sorry. Yes, and it's a little harder to see, but tell us what the Verizon.
There's a handheld mic right there. Thank
Yep,
you.
you may have to turn it on. If you could point out the direction of travel for those Life 360 as well as the Verizon records. And just to be clear, before you do that, these black arrows, do you see what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Those are not representative necessarily of the location of the phone, right?
Correct. Both the black arrows as well as the circles with numbers are merely to illustrate the sequence and direction, general direction of travel. It's not meant to give you an exact route that the device traveled, just to help orient through the slides and see the sequence and directions. So starting up here in 1, going to 2, 3, 4, The green dots continue west, then south to 5, and then west to 6.
And that would look like the phone was in the area of Twisted Fisherman by what time?
The first record in that area depicted here is approximately 5:05 p.m.
And then what is it? It goes to 5:12 p.m. there as well?
Yes, so from approximately 5:05 through 5:12, consistent with being in the area of the Twisted Fisherman.
And if there had been video of Miss Robinson arriving at Twisted Fisherman shortly after 5 p.m., would these records be consistent? Excuse me, I should rephrase that. If Miss Robinson had gone from Pizza Shuttle to Twisted Fisherman in that time frame, would these records be consistent with that movement of her car?
Yes.
Okay. How about Maxwell Anderson's phone?
We start down here with the blue 1. The first time there is approximately 4:57 p.m. And then going in sequence 1, 2, 1 and 2 are both intersecting. So as before I talked about, you may get intersecting arcs, and you see them intersecting right in the area of the residence here towards the top. So 4:57 and then 3, 4, 5, and 6, arriving in the area of the Twisted Fisherman with the first record here at approximately 5:14 p.m.
And then how about this little box in the corner here?
This is just a zoomed-in version of what we have right here, where both the phones and the Life 360 converge in a sense in the center of the slide. So zoomed in, you see the arcs from the timing advance and the RTT, as well as the Life 360 pin or locations that were provided. So 5:05, 52, 5:05, 37, and 5:05, 22, all 3 devices consistent with being in the area of the Twisted Fisherman around that time.
And all 3 consistent with traveling from other locations to the Twisted Fisherman between 4:55 and 5:15.
That is correct.
Let's go to slide 10. Take us through this one.
Still the same 3 accounts at the top, moving forward in time, still on April 1st, 2024, but between approximately 5:15 p.m. and 6:30 p.m. You'll see multiple distances off that tower. You'll see multiple arcs for both the Verizon phone over here, and then there's a Life 360 record at the 6:29 p.m., showing that all 3 of these devices have records consistent with remaining in that area during that time.
If there were video of Sade and Mr. Anderson inside the Twisted Fisherman during the 5:15 to 6:30 p.m. hour, would these records be consistent with those videos?
They would.
Slide 11.
Again, same 3 identifiers, now moving forward in time, where we left off before in the area of the Twisted Fisherman, going in sequence, the first blue record here at approximately 6:30, 6:30:01. Then we have a Life 360 record right there as well. Then the Verizon record, 1, 2, 2, 3, and then 3, 4. Again, starting in the area of Twisted Fisherman, consistent with leaving there and heading towards the area of Dukes on Water.
And if there was video of Sade Robinson's car parking on Water Street across the street from Dukes at about 6:33 p.m., would these records be consistent with that?
They would be.
Now, between 6:30 and 9:05, it looks like both phones arrive in the area of Dukes on Water around what time?
The first record depicted for the Verizon phones around 6:36, the AT&T phone around 6:39, and the Verizon phone has records through approximately 9:04, and the AT&T through 8:56 p.m.
And those last times you talked about, they're remaining in the area of Dukes on Water?
Yeah, they're consistent with remaining in that area during
Okay.
that time.
Let's talk about what happens after 9:05 p.m.
Still same identifiers, still April 1st, 2024, moving forward in time from 9:06 through 9:23 p.m., starting where we left off in the area of Dukes on Water. Both cell phones and the Life 360 have records consistent with traveling away from Dukes on Water to the area consistent with Maxwell Anderson's residence during that time.
Are you able to even tell an approximate route they took?
Based off the Life 360, you'd be consistent with taking the freeway south and then going west towards the residence and then north.
Okay. So if there were video of Maxwell Anderson and Sade Robinson leaving the Dukes on Water around 9:06 p.m. and driving away towards this freeway, would these records be consistent with those videos?
They would be.
And if there was video of Sade Robinson's car arriving in the area of Maxwell Anderson's residence at 9:21 p.m., would these records be consistent with her phone moving to that same area?
It'd be consistent with arriving in that area around that time.
Okay. After 9:23 p.m., I'm going to move to slide 13. What do we see?
This is still the same three accounts. April 1st, we now go into the second because we'll be past midnight, looking from approximately 9:22 p.m. through 12:47 a.m. The various RTT or timing advance measurements for both phones, as you can see here, another illustration of them intersecting in a similar area. Again, refining my conclusion that they're consistent with being in the immediate area of that residence throughout that time listed here. So we have records ranging from beginning about 9:22 for both phones and through approximately 12:46 a.m. for both phones on the cellular side.
After 12:47 a.m., what do we see happening?
Starting with down here, we'll start with the, is there a certain phone you want me to start with?
Let's start with Mr. Anderson's phone.
So we have a cell site down here being used. We had a data record handoff at approximately 12:46:14, and then the last data session runs from approximately 1:30:56 through 1:35:58. So at some point between approximately 1:30 and 1:35, that cell site is used by Mr. Anderson's phone, and then after 1:35:58, it is no longer on the cellular network, and that is why you do not see anything else mapped the remainder of this time.
Going off the cellular network there, would that be consistent with, say, had the phone died from battery loss?
If it had no battery, then it couldn't communicate with the cellular network, and these records would be consistent with that.
And just to be very clear, are these data records at the one between 1:46 and 1:30:56? And then I think you said the tower use is between 1:30:56 and 1:35:58. Are those at all, from your viewing of the records, are you able to see whether that's phone use?
It's, again, they're data records, and as I mentioned earlier, I cannot say what's happening during those data records, just that there is a data session open, and that phone is communicating with the network during that time.
And again, data sessions can be non-human interaction with the phone.
Correct. I'll refer to it sometimes as passive usage, so not necessarily user activity, just sitting there.
Could you give some examples of that?
So as I mentioned before, your phone may be sitting on your desk. You get an app notification. Maybe you have a Ring home alarm, or you get a news alert, or your Gmail box is populating, or a Facebook, Instagram notification. All that's happening in the background, and you need an open data session for that to occur. So while that's going there, if I looked at anybody's records from here, I couldn't say whether it's Instagram, Facebook, or any of those other things I mentioned, just that your phone's on, communicating with the network, and it's utilizing that cell site around that time.
So if the phone had been left behind but on, would these records be inconsistent with that?
No, they'd be on past what time?
I guess prior to 1:30:56.
Yeah, so as I mentioned here, I can only say that this cell site is used sometime between that 1:30:56 and 1:35:58. After that, there's no more records of that phone on the network, so it is not communicating with the network in one way or another.
And nobody had to be with that phone for it to communicate with the network at that time.
I can't infer any user activity during that time.
All right, let's move to Sade's phone.
This one we do have movement on, and again, numbers giving you the sequence in addition to the Life 360. Starting in the area of Maxwell Anderson's residence around 12:47, 12:48 a.m., consistent with traveling north, east, and then kind of northeast, ending up here where number 12 is, with records between approximately 1:33 a.m. and 1:59 a.m.
Are you able to tell from the Life 360 an approximate route on what street?
Based off of here, I believe I see 35th Street. There's a record there, continuing north and then going east.
So if there were video of Sade Robinson's car driving northbound on 35th Street in the 12:50 a.m. hour, would these records be consistent with the movement of the phone? Or excuse me, would these records be consistent with that video?
They would.
We have, I wanted you to look at number 6 here. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay, what time would that be about?
Approximately 12:58:48 a.m. for number 6.
If there was an image of Sade's vehicle exiting the freeway at that location around that same time, would these records be consistent with that video?
They would be.
It appears over here, if we move forward 7, 8, and 9, that they're traveling in what direction?
In a northeast then northerly direction.
And number 12, as you're going up into the River West area, what's going on up there?
I'm sorry, I'm going to move to strike the last answer. I heard him say they. I don't know what they means. He asked about a phone.
Do you want to re-ask the question?
Sure.
And clarify the answer?
I can do that.
Thank you.
What direction does the phone move after that 12:58
The phone
record?
The phone records are showing movement northeast and then north during that time.
Towards River West?
Yes.
Okay, and then what goes on between about 1:07 and 1:59?
There are records both kind of in this lower area, and then we have records up here, number 12, between that 1:33 and 1:59 a.m.
And you have this arrow right here it's very small, but it's there, right?
Yes, it's just to illustrate the arrow that showed east and then north from this area up towards number 12.
At what approximate times is the phone appearing to be in the area that I'm circling here, marked out by numbers 11 and 12?
So 11, the time for number 11 is approximately 1:14 to 1:16, but based off the phone's movements, it goes up towards that area and then has records consistent with moving back south and then north in that time, where the final area is up towards number 12 between approximately 1:33 and 1:59 a.m.
So if there was a video from an address on Dousman right up here by number 12 showing Miss Robinson's car, would these records be consistent with that video?
They'd be consistent with that area, yes.
Slide 15.
Still moving forward in time, we're now on April 2nd, between approximately 2 a.m. and 2:29 a.m. The AT&T phone is not shown here because it is still not on the cellular network. Starting where we left off on the previous slide, records consistent with moving north towards Capitol, west on Capitol, back east in that direction, and then south through here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
So the phone appears to depart the River West area going westbound on Capitol?
It's consistent with that. One of these Life 360s is a 2:06 a.m. We then, approximately 2:06, we have a 2:11, and then 2:17, so out and then back.
And when you were looking at all of these, prior to mapping it all out and everything, were you in communication with Detective Jake Pushnig about the Capitol Drive area?
I was. After reviewing these records, I directed him to look up there around those times for video.
If there were a video of Miss Robinson's vehicle going westbound on Capitol Drive at 2:06 a.m., would these records be consistent with that video?
They would be.
And if there were a video of her car going eastbound on Capitol Drive at 2:16, would these records be consistent with that video?
They would be.
And then after coming back eastbound, are you able to tell from the Life 360 whether the car or the phone appeared to travel consistent with the interstate?
Yes, both the Life 360 as well as the Verizon records. So based off of the latitude, longitude of where it is, you see it on the freeway, but also just looking at the timestamps, approximately 2:22 and then 2:27 down here. So you get from here to here in 5 minutes would be consistent with the freeway.
Okay, based on the speeds, right?
Correct.
So by 2:28 a.m. on April 2nd, we're looking way down here south of downtown Milwaukee in the area consistent with the freeway.
That is correct.
Going to move on to slide 16. What happens after that time?
Continuing where we left off, the first record here at approximately 2:28, the second, third, fourth out here at approximately 2:33.
Actually, I want to pause you. I want to go back. I forgot to ask one thing. When we were talking about going down Capitol, about how far west did it appear that the phone went?
It would be, this arc here was the closest one depicted here, so that'd be consistent with getting towards Fond du Lac.
Okay, Fond du Lac Avenue and Capitol Drive,
That's correct, around that general area.
and then before moving back east.
Correct.
All right, sorry about that. Let's go back to ahead, I should say, to slide 16.
So back where we were, here at approximately 2:28, 2, 3, 4 at approximately 2:33. Back to 5. 5 was at approximately 2:35, and then 6, 7, so consistent with travel west, east, south, and then east as we continue 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and then 12, consistent with the area of the location of the lake.
Okay, so there's a Life 360 point over here at 2:32 a.m., right?
Correct.
Does this appear to be as far west as the phone records show that it went?
Yeah, that area would be consistent with where that point is in that northeast thoroughfare.
And then it appears the phone, the records are consistent with the phone moving back east after that?
Correct.
And then what time would those records be consistent with the vehicle exiting at, say, College Avenue?
Sometime around that 2:38, so we have this 2:38 record. Don't have all the arcs illustrated, or else you would not be able to see clearly what is going on. And then we're here at number 8 at approximately 2:42.
So I'll just stop it right there. And so if there was a video of the vehicle exiting the interstate at College Avenue at 2:38 a.m., would that be consistent with what the records show?
It would be.
If there was a video and then the phone moving eastbound on College Avenue, and if there was a video showing the car over here at St. Luke's South Shore at 2:51 a.m., would that be consistent with what the records show?
It'd be consistent around that time, yes.
And then how about after that?
We then have these multiple arcs and distances off tower number 12, as well as a Life 360 point. So these records consistent with being in the area of the lake location between approximately 2:52 a.m. and 4:33 a.m., and then a Life 360 record at approximately 3:24 a.m.
Are you able to tell from the Life 360 records whether that the phone is stationary in that position?
One of the tabs that Life 360 have is they have what they call a dwell, which Life 360 says in their glossary is when a phone is at a location for a period of time. So this is the start of a time that includes the dwell period in that area.
So these three arcs we're seeing here, they're all seemingly intersecting with the orange pin drop that you put in there, correct?
They're in that area, so that first one is intersecting there. The other two are just a little bit past it, but consistent with that general area.
So if the phone were at the location of the orange pin drop from about 2:53 a.m. to 4:34 a.m., would these records be consistent with that?
They would be.
After 4:34, we're going to move on to slide 17. What happens after 4:34 a.m.?
We have records consistent with movement away from the last known location in the area of the lake location. So 1, and you see these arcs getting closer and closer to that travel, which is consistent with movement. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and that 7 at approximately 4:39:36 a.m. is the last RTT record for the Verizon phone.
Would these, if there were video of Sade's car heading northbound away from Warnemont Park on Lake Drive, where my mouse is here, after 4:35 a.m., would these records be consistent with that movement?
They would be.
And then over here on Howard Avenue at 4:38 a.m., would these records be consistent with that movement?
Around that general time, yes.
All right. And then after 4:39:36 a.m., what happens?
There are no more records for that phone, so it's consistent with that phone no longer being on the network.
No more Life 360 records?
No,
No more Verizon records?
no.
If the phone had died, would that be consistent with what you're seeing from the records?
It'd be consistent with that.
And Mr. Anderson's phone during this time period is where or what?
There are no records of that phone on the cellular network at this time.
Slide 18.
This now is only looking at Mr. Anderson's phone for April 2nd between approximately 1:30 a.m. and 9:31 a.m. So that 1:30 a.m. range was around the last data session prior to it, consistent with going off the network. And then the first record of it coming back on the network is around 9:19:59 a.m. when a data session opens and is shown on the records. And then we have a timing advance measurement at approximately 9:36 a.m., consistent with the area of the residence.
So this 1:30, this box over here, 1:30:56, basically it's off the network from 1:35:58 a.m. to 9:36 a.m., correct?
So sometime in that 1:30:56 through 1:55:58, it goes off the network, and then the first record is 9:19:59.
And again, the record that tells you that requires absolutely no human interaction with the phone, right?
Correct, it's the data record. So again, that passive activity that I can't tell you whether it's user interaction or not, just the phone could be powered on.
And then by 9:19 over here a.m., a data session comes back on?
Yes, that's the first record illustrated there using that tower, the 9:30 a.m. for the record there, and then the 9:30:36. Again, you see them intersecting consistent with the area of Maxwell Anderson's residence.
Would all of these records be consistent with if Maxwell Anderson's phone was at home during the 1:30 a.m. to 9:31 a.m. time frame on April 2nd?
So I can just tell you where the phone is at these times. So in that 1:30, 1:35, and then again, that 9:19 when it comes on the network.
Okay, nowhere in between because there are no records whatsoever.
Correct, I cannot tell you where that phone is with no records.
I want to go back one slide and ask you one more question about this one. And all of these slides we're seeing with Sade's phone moving around, are any of these points that you've mapped out here, do they require user interaction with the phone?
They do not. These records are generally just the phone being powered on. And again, it could be sitting there with no user interaction and you would get all this data.
Similar to the example I gave before about driving around the city with the phone in my pocket.
That is correct.
All right. All right, and then slide 19 here, that's the last slide. I just have a few more questions. Agent Reiner, are you aware of the last text message, the time of the last text message from Sade Robinson's phone?
Upon reviewing the records, yes.
What is it?
That was an outgoing text at approximately 5:18 p.m. on April 1st, 2024.
And who was it to?
That was to Mr. Anderson's phone.
Are you aware of the time of the last connected call from Sade Robinson's phone?
Yes, the last incoming call with duration, yes.
And what time was that?
That was at approximately 4:26 p.m. for 131 seconds.
So in the times that we've talked about throughout this entire slideshow, there were no other calls from Ms. Robinson's phone.
Past that, 518 text, no.
I have nothing else.
Ross? Sure. Okay, we're gonna take a break right now for the afternoon, so you can stretch your legs a little bit, get some water, and then we'll come back shortly. Okay, thanks, everybody. So we had concerned that the jury was looking a little sleepy at points, and that there was one juror that shut his eyes for a period, but then popped right back up. And the idea was that maybe taking a break and letting them stretch their legs a little bit might be a great idea, which I fully agree with. And state indicated that they think they have approximately 10 more witnesses left, approximately. Anything you'd like to add to that sidebar, State?
Just that I'd noticed it too, but then when I looked back, the juror was back and paying attention. And I did actually mention it while I was questioning Agent Reiner.
I do think that the jury has been really attentive. This jury has been really good. They've been taking a lot of notes. They've been paying attention. There is one juror I do notice that does look down a lot, but I think they've been really attentive, to be honest.
I agree.
Defense, any record you'd like to make? No. Okay, then we'll just take an afternoon break.
Thanks.
Do you think there's going to be more videos you're showing for the remainder of the day? Or maybe I can even open up one of these things so it's not so dark and dim in here. Or do you have more videos?
I have one, but it's not one that's going to require
Dimming the lights or anything?
careful, it's not going to require dimming of the lights, but we will have photographs. I don't know if that would.
Well, we'll try it, and
Okay.
if it is a glare, we'll shut them again. Okay, then we'll take our afternoon break, everybody.
Calling State of Wisconsin versus Maxwell Anderson, case 24, CF1692, appearances.
Ian Vance, Krzan, and Megan Newport for the state, along with Detective Joanne Donner.
Anthony Cotton, Jason Finley, and Max Anderson, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Is there anything to address on the record before we bring the jury back?
One small thing, Judge, after this witness, I will have a short witness, and then I will have the DNA analyst, who may take some time. And then after that, I would be requesting just a brief recess before the next witness, who is a civilian.
Okay.
Not long, just like 5 to 10 minutes maybe.
Okay, you think we can get through all that today? Yes.
I'm hopeful.
Okay, I
Yeah.
like Attorney
Yeah.
Newport's positive attitude.
Yeah.
Okay, let's bring him in. Okay, we're gonna go back on the record. We have the same appearances. We still have the special agent on the stand. So just, I know that it's long and sitting here all day. It's not always so easy listening to everything and just sitting here. And sometimes you get a little bit exhausted by it. If anybody feels exhausted and wants to stand up, you can stand up and stand to the right, to your left of the jury box. And you can do that without asking permission. So if you feel like, boy, I just gotta stand up and stretch my legs, or if you're in the back row, feel free to stand up if you wanna stretch your legs at any point, okay? Because I know that we just keep going. All right, let's proceed at this time. Cross.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Just a few topics. So first of all, with respect to the final topic you were asked about, phone calls or text messages, obviously there's other ways that one can use data on one's phone.
Such as?
Instagram.
Yes,
There's other ways to communicate is a better way to say it besides just text or phone calls, right?
correct.
Especially with the younger generation, 19, 20-year-olds, right?
Yes, social media, anything.
Many may not even use text messages all that often.
Possibly, yes.
And to be clear, with all this data we're looking at, when we're talking about data points, I want to emphasize that that can be a person using the phone, or it can also be the phone operating in the background, right?
In terms of the data that we talked about?
Yes.
Well, so from the phone records, from what I can testify to, I can talk about usage in terms of voice or text, but then whether it's the data records or the RTT or timing advance, I can't tell you whether that's somebody using it or just sitting idle.
And you said that for Ms. Robinson's phone, the last phone call was at what time?
The phone call was at approximately 4:26 p.m. that had duration.
And then a text message at what time? 5 something?
The text message was an outgoing text at 5:18, and those were user ones, so looking at somebody actually originating a text or answering a phone call.
Okay. But what about Instagram messages after 5:18 p.m.?
I have no information about any of that.
Or Facebook messages or Snapchat messages?
I have no information about any of that.
Why do you not have any information on that?
Because I'm just looking at the phone records from the cellular providers, and they would not capture that activity.
So one would need the actual phone and a different type of expert to answer those questions.
Potentially, if that was there, but that would be somebody other than me.
Okay. Now, with the data you selected, were you the one who chose this data to look at, or was it provided to you? The date ranges specifically.
Oh, the date ranges were provided to me.
So this material, when you compiled your PowerPoint presentation, this material came from someone else, right?
The records came from the cellular providers, and then the dates and locations came from investigators.
Okay, so investigators say, we want you to look at April 1st and April 2nd, and then you plot all the data, right?
Yes, and they give me the locations, and they ask, what did the phones do, or where were they at during that time?
And I have up on the screen page 16 from your PowerPoint presentation. You can see the number in the bottom corner, right?
Yes, sir.
You said something before on direct examination about Life 360 providing, I think you used the expression dwell periods. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes.
What is a dwell period?
So per their glossary, they reference the dwell when a phone was in a period, I don't recall the exact time range, but when it was in a location for a period of time.
Stationary.
All I can say is dwell is because that's what they call it, so I can only say dwell.
Okay, but when we were looking at slide 16 specifically is when you mentioned the dwell period from Life 360. Why did you mention that at this point?
So it was a question about remaining, I believe, in an area, and that was according to the Life 360 information. That's what they informed as a dwell period.
Okay, so any of these numbers we see here can incorporate dwell periods?
No, there were 4 areas and locations related to dwell over the time frame of my analysis.
And which 4 would those be?
Those would be the area of Twisted Fisherman, Dukes on Water, Maxwell Anderson's residence, and as well as the lake location.
Now, with respect to that lake location, you're talking about the one down by Grant Park, Warnemont Park, down in that area?
Yes, that orange dot with those coordinates I was given.
And early in your presentation, you were showing us the cell towers that exist because obviously the cell providers have put towers in popular areas, right?
They build their network to meet their business needs and satisfy their customers.
So like slide 7, for example, numerous cell towers throughout downtown Milwaukee, and then lesser and more rural, less populated areas, right?
Yes, they kind of vary. There's a cluster there in the middle, kind of around the residence, and less dense in some of those other areas, yes.
And then Warnemont Beach, that orange circle, right?
Yes, that box there, yes.
Now, could you go back? I want to ask somewhat of a hypothetical. You have Max Anderson's phone number, obviously, right?
According to these records and the information I was given, yes.
Yeah, you have his number.
Yes.
Okay. And you can contact the cell provider and get records, right?
Yes.
And those records can then show you, and you can go back months and months and months.
Depending on the provider, they have different retention periods, and it could cover months, yes. It does.
Spoke a little fast there. Different providers have different retention periods.
Yes, and they would go back. All of them would be able to, let's say, have it from 3-4 months ago at least, and
Okay.
longer.
So if we wanted to see, for example, does Max Anderson go to Warnemont Beach area on as a regular habit or a regular basis? Does his phone go there regularly? You could go back historically for months and look at that, right?
If I had the records, you could go back and look for that, yes.
You could plot out really sort of one's daily routine in a way, couldn't you?
With the right data sets, yes.
Yeah, if you go back 3 months and plot it all out, you might start to see patterns that develop.
Correct.
And that's something you've done in your work with the FBI. I think you were speaking about it right out of the gate, that sometimes you want to do a profile and go back and develop someone's pattern.
Yeah, I would refer to it as a pattern of life, yes.
It's a better expression, pattern of life.
Yes.
Phone goes from this home in Madison to Milwaukee. It seems like every day from 8 to 9 a.m. they're going this distance, might draw an inference that they commute to work, for example, right?
Correct.
So did you ever go back and look at whether Max Anderson's phone has any pattern of life going to Warnemont Beach?
I did not.
Well, we know obviously, I mean, what this data tells us today is that obviously for April 1st, April 2nd, Max Anderson's phone and Sade Robinson's phone were in similar places, Twisted Fisherman and Dukes, for example, right?
That is correct.
Okay. Well, nobody disputes that.
I'm not sure what's being disputed, but I agree with your past statement.
And then Warnemont Beach, there's no evidence of Max Anderson's phone going to Warnemont Beach April 2nd, right?
In these timeframes that I analyzed, there's not.
There is a data entry of 1:30 to 1:35. What slide should I have been looking at for that, if you remember?
That slide would be, I'll find it. That's going to be slide 14.
Okay, I'll just flip it a little bit here. Okay, so just to recap this point, on slide 14, from 1:30 to 1:35, there's a data session with Mr. Anderson's phone, right? That's what you testified to?
That is correct.
Could be that the phone is, it certainly means the phone is on, right?
Correct.
Which is important. It means someone didn't shut it off, it's on.
It's on at some point during that time, yes.
And then the phone had some activity during that time, right?
Correct. There was data transfer between the phone and the network.
Could be by a user using it,
It could be.
right? It could be, or it could not be.
Correct. I can't tell you either or.
But in any event, you know for sure that that phone is down in that area where we have the number 1, right?
Yeah.
The blue number 1.
Yes, at that point between 1:30 and 1:35, as you mentioned. Yes, sir.
Slide 14, blue number 1, phone down there, right?
Yes.
Which is consistent. If one has their phone on them, it's consistent with a person being in that area.
It's consistent with a phone being in that area.
Were you given information about Max Anderson's home address, for example, to look at that as part of your analysis?
Yes, it's denoted by the red R on the map.
And this one, blue 1 that you have down here at the bottom is in that area, right?
Yes, between that 1:30, 1:35, as you referenced.
One minute, please. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
State?
Just very briefly, the record, when law enforcement wants phone records for you to analyze in this fashion, you have to get a court order to do so, right?
A search warrant.
You didn't do it yourself here, the sheriff's office did it, but that's how the records that you received were compiled, right?
Yes, they were obtained via legal process, a search warrant, and then provided to me.
And when counsel asked you on this slide whether this was what I'm circling here, the data, it says data handoff, when he said that's indicative of some activity, you are not testifying that that is user activity. Is that a fair statement?
I can't tell you what kind of activity, just that it's communication between the phone and the network.
That'd be a question for somebody else?
Yeah, somebody else that would have other data sets or information,
Perhaps information from the mobile phone itself?
potentially.
Nothing else?
Defense? No. Thank you.
EJ.
State your next witness.
Recalling Ethan Stout.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
If you can please be seated, restate and respell your name for the record.
Deputy Ethan Stout, ETHANSTOUDT.
Deputy Stout, at some point in April of 2024, while you were investigating this incident, the disappearance of Sade Robinson, did you learn that Maxwell Anderson had worked at Victor's.
I did.
Where's Victor's?
Victor's is located at 1230 North Van Buren Street in the city of Milwaukee.
Did you attempt to get video footage from Victor's?
I did.
Did you go to that bar?
I did.
Club or whatever it is? Okay. Were you able to get video from the video system itself there?
I was not.
Did you get video from there?
Yes.
How'd you do that?
The manager of the bar at the time had short clips on his cell phone that were, I guess, recordings of the recording, if that makes sense. He used his phone to take a video of the computer screen that was displaying the video.
And how many clips did you recover?
There were 2 clips.
I've got Exhibit 280 on the screen right now. Do you recognize this?
I do.
What is it?
That is the entranceway or front entrance, I guess, for Victor's Bar nightclub.
This is one of the clips you retrieved?
It was.
Move 280 in.
Any objection?
No.
Received.
All right. On these 2 clips, what are we going to see in some?
In one of the clips, we will see Miss Robinson enter the bar and then go off screen. And then in another clip, we will see Mr. Anderson and Miss Robinson appear to exit the bar and go off screen.
On one of these clips, are you able to see the date briefly?
Yes.
Do you know what date and time approximately that clip is from?
Yes, March 29th of 2024, and I believe it's around 11:37 p.m.
So that would have been the Friday night before Miss Robinson went missing?
Yes.
I'm going to play the first of the 2 clips. The first one's 15 seconds long. I got the wrong clip up. I'm sorry. I'm starting with the clip that ends in the number 1785. All right, I have it paused at 3 seconds. This clip is 34 seconds. Camera person zoomed out. Are you able to see the date and time? If you have to get up, you can do that.
Sure, I'll get up quick.
Okay. And then come back to the microphone, please.
Yes, I'm able to see the date.
What was it?
That is, excuse me, 03/29/2024 at 11:37 and some seconds p.m.
All right. Playing this clip. What do you see?
In the back right of the frame, I see Miss Robinson entering the bar.
She says hello to a bouncer or somebody?
It would appear to be a bouncer, yes.
And then the second clip, which has the numbers in 1708. What do you see here?
Coming out of the frame is Miss Robinson and Mr. Anderson. They exchange pleasantries with people at the door and then exit out the door to the parking lot or street.
Does it appear they're walking together?
Yes.
There's no timestamp on that second clip, but based on her clothing, Miss Robinson's clothing, does it appear to be that it would have been that same night when she was leaving Victor's?
It appears so, yes.
Nothing else?
Cross.
It was just Mr. Anderson walking her out the door on the second clip, right?
It appears so, yes.
And they appears friendly with each other, right?
Yes.
And did you do any other searches at Victor's when you were there?
I did not.
Okay. One question I had about Victor's is whether you asked the owner whether there's any storage areas for employees to keep their belongings. Did you ever look into that?
I did not.
Okay, that's all.
Dave?
Nothing else?
Thank you, Deputy. State your next witness.
Sharon Polakowski.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
If you could please be seated, state and spell your name for the record.
Sharon Polakowski, SharonPolakowski.
Good afternoon. How are you employed?
I'm employed as a forensic scientist in the DNA analysis unit of the Wisconsin State Crime Laboratory in Milwaukee.
How long have you worked in that capacity?
I've been at the crime laboratory since October of 1993. I've been doing DNA analysis since maybe 1997.
Can you just discuss the background training